And joining us this morning is a veterinary officer in the Veterinary and Livestock Division at the Ministry of Agriculture. I don't know why Dr. Nneka Hull James is laughing. I thought it was an excellent segue mistake to speaking with a vet. I couldn't resist. It was low hanging fruit for me.
Was it? Was it?
Well, it was low hanging fruit, but I love a good steak. Huh? So I'm not one of those folks who have migrated to no meat and whatnot. So me and my friend, well, a few friends of mine who are trying to get me in that direction, I wish them all the best. Steak is life, I gotta tell you, especially a well done steak. And I hear an amen going up in the studio. Anyway, putting all jokes aside, Dr. Nneka Hull James is the veterinary officer in the Veterinary and Livestock Division in the Ministry of Agriculture, and it is Chemical Awareness Week, and she's here to tell us about the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, of which she is a member. And I actually did not know that until now. Anytime I think about this wheelhouse here, I think of Dr. Linroy Christian.
Yes. He's our chairman.
He's the chairman. Dr. Nneka Hull James, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning to you and good morning to all of our listening public.
Fantastic. And we're not going to be talking steak this morning. We're going to be speaking about what is the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board, for those who are uninitiated, have no clue.
So the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board is really the regulatory body in Antigua that's focused on ensuring the safe use of chemicals throughout Antigua. And when we speak about chemicals, we are not only thinking about what you might find in a chemistry lab, but we're talking about a lot of the substances that are all around us. So in agriculture, we're talking about the pesticides that are used, even some of the medications and the different substances that are used throughout our crops, on our farms, and with livestock. We are talking about pesticide use generally in the home. We are speaking about our BOP, our shell tox, our bleach, our disinfectants. All of these are also chemicals that we utilize in our homes. We are also even speaking about the drugs that we use, and I'm speaking about antibiotics and other medications from the pharmacy perspective. And so it's really a very broad topic, and it's important, therefore, that, we have a regulatory body to ensure that whatever comes into Antigua is indeed safe for public use, or if it's being used by a particular operator, safe in that manner, because everything is connected. And while I'm on the topic of Chemicals Week, I must also wish everyone a happy World Food Day, because today is the UN recognized World Food Day, and the theme for this year is water is life, water is food, leave no one behind. And there's, of course, a very important connection here, because the agrochemicals in particular that we utilize on our farms, and also not only with livestock but also with crops, you have to think about the runoff, the agricultural runoff that comes from our farms that gets into our waterways, and all of this is connected when we think about the water that we're using safely within our homes and so on. What is the water that is even being used to water our crops? Because many of our farmers will utilize pesticides in their watering, water management systems as well. So it's all very much connected.
All interconnected, and very important that responsible use.
Yes.
That is something that your board advocates.
That is exactly what we advocate, and that's the purpose of this week. This week we're recognizing it as Chemicals Awareness Week, because we want to ensure that we engage the public so there's that understanding of, how to utilize chemicals safely, how to utilize them in a judicious manner, to ensure that, we're able to achieve whatever is the goal for this particular chemical, whether it's cleaning and disinfecting, whether it is for a particular, for medicating, whether it is to achieve some other process, because they're so widespread in so many different things that we utilize, even in the products that we use on our bodies and so on. We have to think about the chemicals that could be in these as well. And so that's why it's really important to have our regulatory body to ensure that, an importer can't just, they find a particular new pesticide or chemical on the market. They can't just bring them in and start selling them. We have a board that ensures that every single chemical that comes in, our registrar is able to review the safety data sheets. They're able to review what is the composition of these chemicals, so that once that has been reviewed, we can make a determination as to whether it is something that we think is safe enough to enter into, public use, or is it something that has to then be reserved only for specific operators who would receive the training to utilize particular products. And also we have to take into consideration, when we bring these products into Antigua, how are they going to be disposed of, how are they going to be stored. And so that is actually where the work of our inspectors comes in, because any whether it's buildings or warehouses that store chemicals, our inspectors have to go into those buildings and take a walk through. Is there the proper ventilation? Is there proper protective equipment for the staff who are there? Is there a proper drainage setup? Are there the data safety sheets posted on the walls so that all persons can be aware? And if there's an issue where this is a particularly hazardous chemical, do you have an eye wash set up? Do you have running water? Do you have all of these other requirements to ensure that in the event that something does go wrong, do you have a fire extinguisher? All of these different things are part of the checklist.
It's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot, and that's what we want persons to understand, that when you make the decision to, to whether it's to sell chemicals to other persons for their use, or whether it is as a provider and an operator, you have to ensure that you're also putting all these other things in place, because chemical usage doesn't just stop at the application. We also have to think about, as I said, the storage of the chemicals before and after use, and how also are you going to be able to react in a situation where there may be an emergency, whether there's a spillage or something of that sort. And also, is the environment that the persons are required to, even maybe like for the operators to mix chemicals, is that a safe environment for the workers? And then another thought is, are the chemicals labeled appropriately? That is a big consideration that we think about when we are reviewing, to ensure that these chemicals are indeed safe for sale. Relabeling is really illegal. And, decanting of chemicals into other containers, decanting. So, there are old practices where persons may have bought something and then they want to put it into smaller containers. All that is illegal. And so that's why we come out to engage the public in programs like this, so that they're aware. And our Chemicals Week, we have a number of activities that we'll be embarking on to empower persons as well to utilize chemicals safely.
Right. So who would be typically a person? I mean, who would I sell a chemical? I wouldn't necessarily be selling a chemical. Who's the typical person who would be selling a chemical to another, typical purchaser of chemical products?
Right.
You're talking about outside of the wholesale environment, farm and garden, Cecil Charles, whoever.
Right. So you have your farm and garden suppliers, you have your pesticide suppliers, or those pest control operators, and then you also have some other wholesale places which are specifically focused on selling the chemicals for cleaning agents. And then you have those suppliers that also would be selling chemicals for use in particular circumstances, whether it might be, chemicals that are utilized not only for pesticides, but also we think about the chemicals utilized in laboratories and so on around the island. So there are a lot of different uses of chemicals that we don't always think about, because many persons just think, chemicals, that's something being mixed up in a lab. That doesn't affect me. But we all have chemicals in our homes.
Yes. Clorox is a chemical?
Clorox is a chemical. The disinfectants that we use are chemicals. Even chemicals in some of our cosmetics and so on that we use. So we have to be aware of all of these things.
Yes, the cosmetics. My mind went immediately or instantly to a certain type of cream that does certain things to the skin, which I know is an issue that your chairman has been
It is
speaking about.
it is an issue, and it
Mm.
is something that we will even have further discussions on as well, because there's that consideration of what is the mercury content in bleaching creams and so on.
Right.
What is also the chemical composition? Are they safe for some of the different for the different sales that that persons are using them for? So all of these are different discussions that we engage in on the board.
Who else is on the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board? If you can just give us a sense
So
of
we
who
have
serves.
representation from the Veterinary and Livestock Division. We have representation from the Plant Protection. We have representation from the Pharmacy Council. We have representation from the Customs and Excise Division, because of course they play a very important role when these chemicals come in and ensuring border control to ensure that whatever comes in is indeed on the list of chemicals that are approved for import into Antigua. We have representation from legal affairs as well. So we have, and of course we have our registrar. So we have quite a wide intersectoral composition that brings the expertise together.
Okay. What are the plans for the week? Let's get into that. What's happening this week? I imagine, well, I don't know if today is media day, but you're here.
I'm here, yes. So we would have been on ABS this morning, sharing information with the public. We're here with you now. The media continues tomorrow as well. And then on Wednesday, we're having our stakeholder discussion. And that is very important because we want to ensure that we're engaging not just, as I said, those typical chemical operators, but also persons from the Ministry of Health, persons from agriculture, persons from the environmental division, and so many other different sectors, because it's an important discussion that we want to ensure that everyone is engaged in, and where we're able to discuss some of the really important issues that we may not have the opportunity to delve into too much detail into in other forums.
Right.
So that's going to be an important discussion on safe use of chemicals and ensuring that persons from different groups which have to interact with different types of chemicals are aware of the information, so that they too can share that in their respective circles. On Thursday, we're going to be engaging the schools and having discussions with students who are...
What you going to talk to them about? I'm curious.
Yeah, yes, it's important. So we'll actually go into Jennings Secondary School. We'll be speaking with the agricultural students, because of course they're utilizing pesticides for their for their agriculture class.
That's true.
Then we're going to be speaking to the chemistry students at Antigua Girls High School, because naturally we want to ensure that they understand how to safely use chemicals in their lab. Also, we want to ensure that they have that understanding as well, the storage of chemicals. And then there's also so much more we want to share with them in terms of different conventions that Antigua would have signed up to be a part of. You have like the Minamata Convention, the Basel Conventions, and these are just these different treaties that we would have signed on to at various conferences to ensure they're all related to chemicals in the environment, safe disposal of these chemicals in the environment, and of course the trade and so on that takes place. So we're going to have discussions with our students on that on Thursday. And then Friday, of course, we round out our week, and we're going to have a wrap-up discussion again on what has taken place, and we're going to go even more into detail on household chemicals as well, because I'm sure many of the persons who are listening, they're still trying to create that link, why is this important to me? So we're going to have that discussion as well.
Okay, fantastic. What are the challenges that are faced by the board in the discharge of the...
Compliance.
Surprise, surprise.
That's a major challenge, and I think it comes from many times when, prior to the creation of this board, I think a lot of persons would have just been operating based on, former practice or maybe a precedence that would have been set several years ago. And, now, and of course, change, can come with friction. And, when we go out to our different operators and we share with them, that this is how you need to change in the way you've set up your warehouse, or there's a particular chemical that they want to import, and we have to advise them that it's just not feasible and it's not safe for this particular chemical to be imported. There's always that issue and that resistance that comes. But I must say that with the work of the board and the diligent work of the registrar, we've been able to get the word to the relevant persons so that they're able to have a better understanding of why the compliance is important on their end. So it's definitely a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Do we go share a technical? Yeah, we'll share a break, share some messages, give Dr. Nneka Hull James a chance to catch her thoughts and breath. Having gone through quite a bit of information in relation to the discharge of her duties and some of the challenges that she faces and the other members of the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board. It's a long one for you there. Just before we do that, though, it's now 8:51 in Antigua and Barbuda. This is your wake-up call presented by Twin Island Media on 94.1 FM, where our discussion centers around pesticides. Let me do the Chemical Awareness Week, and we're having a conversation with veterinary officer in the Veterinary and Livestock Division in the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Nneka Hull James, and she is serving on the Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board. I just did not want to trip myself up just now, so I made sure I stuck to the script. We were discussing before we shared our last break there the challenges that she faces, and not just, of course, herself, but other members of the board in executing its mandate. Do you think, or do you believe that you have adequate resources to discharge your duties? Is that a challenge in the discharge of your mandate?
Well, resources are always an issue.
In a small island developing state, in big countries, never mind, small island developing states,
resources are always an issue. But I think we're just trying to make the very best with what we have, and we're really taking an approach. The board is relatively new. We would have been operating probably for the past 3 years or so.
And you've been on it from inception?
I've been with the board now this is my first year on the board, and previously I was an inspector, so I've been involved with pesticides and toxic chemicals for a few years now. But, despite the issues that we have with resources, we're just trying to prioritize what's most important and then move in a stepwise direction in that sense. So our original thought was to look through, what are the chemicals that are currently being utilized, and what are the chemicals that are most commonly used in the largest quantities. And a lot of that would have come from our pest control operators. So we would have gone out to the different pest control operators, inspected those premises, and gotten them licensed and registered and everything. Then we started to branch out further into other warehouses and that sell chemicals. Would have gone out to those and so on. But we've been talking about what would be the next steps and so on. And we really need to think more on the pharmaceutical side. That's something that we're looking into, really taking as one of the next steps, because you have to ensure that what we're utilizing, as veterinarians, as medical practitioners, ensuring that, all of those substances are, of course, licensed and so on, and then everything that we do, we have that continuous engagement with the Pharmacy Council, because they are represented on the board. And, we're just really trying to take that approach of prioritizing and then moving step by step in terms of increasing the number of places that we're able to license and register, so that eventually we would cover, an even wider range.
How many inspectors you have?
Right now we just have 2 inspectors. Well, let's say 3 inspectors, our chief inspector and then 2 others. But, technically all of the board members would be licensed inspectors, but of course, to ensure there's no bias and so on, we prefer to keep it separate.
That makes sense. Compliance. Do the stakeholders acknowledge or accept in the main, that compliance is in everybody's best interest, or are you still having some challenges there? You sort of hinted at themes of that
Yes.
question earlier in terms of the
Yes.
friction that you encounter. But by and large, are you satisfied with the level of compliance?
I think there's always more improvement to be made. And, that's why we're having sessions like what is to come on Wednesday, where we have that stakeholder engagement so that we're able
Where is that going to be again?
That's going to be at the Antigua and Barbuda Hospitality Training Institute. So that will be from 9 to 2 on Wednesday. And the aim of that is really to just get everyone on the same page, because we can't do it alone as a board. The reality is, and this is part of the reason why we're here on programs such as these, is to let persons understand that safe use of chemicals is really everyone's business, and it's something that each of us have a role to play. Even something as simple as reading the back of your can before you spray a pesticide in your home. A lot of persons don't realize that you shouldn't just spray and sit down in the mosquito spray right after, or spray on
Dr.
your feet,
Nneka Hull James.
and you just sit there and inhale it. A lot
Dr.
of persons
Nneka.
don't recognize that.
Dr. Nneka Hull James, I wish everybody in Antigua could get a snippet of what you just said. Because I know of circumstances in which individuals spray. Up to yesterday, I was at they spray, and I'm like, okay, understand?
Yeah.
But folks apparently spray and sit right in the middle of the
Yes.
spray.
And then the worst is those new sprays that have the nice flavor. It's not flavor.
It's not like Bacon that you had to
You
run
had to leave
in the past.
Yeah.
Bacon now smell
Yeah.
nice.
the citronella scents and so on. I'm thinking, why is this done? Some people
Yeah.
think, oh my, it smells good. Let me spray that. That smells. Some people even using it almost as aromatherapy, and so it's crazy. And this is what people don't understand.
I shouldn't laugh, but yes.
Even something as simple as when you're burning things, it's really illegal
Right.
to just start a fire in the back of your yard and burn things.
Right.
I don't know where we got the idea that burning is something that we should do and practice in our backyards. But some
Antigua may come
persons-
from those like I'm a born.
I don't know, but some persons, let's say they have a little rubbish or something, instead of disposing of it in the correct manner, they decide, let me create a little burn heap in the back of your hand and start burning. And what you put into that fire has an effect on
somebody else.
everyone, all your neighbors who are now inhaling this, you who is sitting in the fire and stoking it. All of these things have an effect on your health, on your respiratory system thereafter, and the toxic chemical fumes that are coming from the burn. Some persons don't realize that from the time you put certain types of substances into that fire, it creates a chemical reaction. You're now inhaling certain fumes that no human really should, and people don't even realize this. So that's why I really want to engage persons and let them know, we all have a role to play. It's not just inspectors or the board or those large pesticide operators. It's each and every one of us in terms of what we utilize, how safe we utilize it, how we dispose of it thereafter. We all have a role to play.
Absolutely. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Nneka Hull James. It's amazing how the time flew by quickly to discuss these issues. And I want to thank you for your time this morning on Wake Up Call. And I hope that you have a successful week for the benefit of all of us. And hopefully somebody who's listening who is guilty of spraying and sitting in it or lighting fire in the neighborhood, especially in the villages, and not getting a license for it, especially, stop it. It's not good for you. It's not good for your neighbors. Be kind to one another. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Be safe and God bless.